the Everything But Politics podcast.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Everything But Politics podcast. It is my honor to welcome this week's guest, Jason Zone Fisher. Jason has been involved in the world of media for over 20 years. He's an entrepreneur, media personality, podcast host, and the official voice of LIV Golf. Jason, let's get in the zone, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, you ready to get in the zone? You ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, buckle up. There's no turning back. It's a gift and a curse. I'm always in the zone. Let's do it. Good to be here.
Jason, I got to start by asking, when people ask you what you do, what do you say?
Depends who asks how old that person is, because what I do for a living is a long story. I do a lot of different things, but for some people, the simple way to put it is that I'm a television host and a sports reporter. But there's a lot more than just that. Since I was a kid, I've been performing. I was an actor, turned into a broadcaster, a host, an MC. I travel the world representing brands and leagues. I just try to bring my energy to the table, and hopefully it's infectious. And I'm a lucky guy. I have a lot of really cool jobs, and I pinch myself every single day that I'm getting paid to do this, because I feel like I hit the lottery. I've never worked a day in my life. I work hard, but it's also never really feels like work, because I have a lot of fun meeting incredible people and going to amazing places.
But with that being said, I know you've said you've been doing this since you were a young boy. Did you ever have a job or were in a position where it did feel like work?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, certainly. I mean, the work is in between the jobs, to be honest. I'm a hustler. Every day I'm hustling. I don't have an agent or a manager. I do it all myself. I'm a big believer in getting your foot in the door any way possible and then proving that you belong. So I'm constantly beating down doors, trying to get noticed, trying to get recognized, turning a one-off opportunity into many times years-long relationship with a different brand or a company, and turning it into something bigger. So I do work really hard behind the scenes in between all the jobs to find the different opportunities, to meet people, to follow up, to follow through, to brainstorm ideas, to create opportunities myself. All of that is work and isn't easy. But when I'm actually working, I'm hired for a gig, 99.9% of them are super fun, because they take me to amazing places and I get to meet incredible people and have experiences that other people would pay to do. It's really, really cool. But the hard work is in between setting myself up for each of those opportunities and those successes.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I'm pretty fascinated by your background, because I know you have your upbringing, you were around politics a lot. So with that being said,
yeah, I know. I was with the name of this podcast. I don't know if that's allowed to be talked about, but it's true.
We're just going to talk, no policy or anything, but
okay.
Just with your background there, what point did you realize this is not what I want to pursue? And obviously taking a completely different route, going through media and sports.
Well, as you mentioned, I did grow up in a political family. My father was in politics, and my mom, she came from a large political family where both of her parents were in politics, and her brother. So they were in various positions at the state and local level. But growing up in Ohio, where I was, a lot of national attention was there, being a big swing state. So I grew up, if I would go to an event on the weekend with my parents and there's thousands of people there, usually my parents are the one up on stage giving the speech. Or if I walk in, they're campaigning and they're shaking hands and I know everybody. And I loved political campaigns for all those reasons. I love the performance aspects of it, of being on stage, of meeting people, connecting with them, making people laugh. I would see my dad give the same speech over and over and over again, maybe 15 times in the same day. But he'd open with certain jokes, and it was almost like a stand-up comedian on the road, like what works well and what doesn't. And I really fell in love with that, the performance aspect. What I hated about politics was how much of it is asking other people for money. So much of it is fundraising, and that is brutal. And it's also really tough. Politics has gotten harder and harder to stomach, even just from the sidelines, witnessing it, how negative it's become and how divisive it's become. So I knew that wasn't what I wanted to get into, but I saw elements of the performance side of it and the connecting with people side of it that I was like, that's what I want to do. And when I was a kid, I loved acting and performing. I was in commercials and TV movies and plays, and I loved being on stage, playing these roles and putting on a show. And then when I was in high school, the Cleveland Browns, I'm a big sports fan, as you know, the Cleveland Browns had a Saturday morning kids show about the team trying to get kids into pro football. And they had an open casting call for the show called Browns Blitz, and thousands of kids auditioned, and a couple got picked as co-hosts. And I got picked as one of them. And that really transitioned me from the world of acting to more being myself. I got to be me, Jason, and on the field for the games and hanging with the players in the locker room and doing Madden challenges, playing video games with them and getting to know them. And I was like, this is amazing. A camera and a microphone were like keys to unlock these doors to incredible experiences that I wouldn't normally get access to. So that was sort of the transition from acting into the sports and broadcasting world, and kind of got my first taste of it when I was just in high school doing that show.
And Jason, at such a young age, how did you know that you wanted to get into acting? And then how did you get into it at such a young age? Like, who helped you out?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I just knew that I loved performing from what I talked about, just being around my parents, seeing them on stage, kind of being on, that I had that part of my personality. Some of it might be genetic and some of it might just be learned from that behavior, that I was not a shy kid. I liked performing. I liked how it felt to make people laugh and to be on. And I recognized that very early on when there were productions in school. I would see kids like freak out that we have to do this, and I was like, this comes easy to me. So I kind of noticed early on, I recognized that this is rare, that not everyone has this ability to be able to turn it on, to be able to not really care too much. Of course I care what people think about me, but I always joke I have no fear and no shame, and it's a dangerous combo. That like, if I mess up, what's the worst that happens? I'm able to keep things in perspective. And a lot of people get too afraid of what they're going to say or how they're going to come across when they, get on stage or in front of a lot of people. And I didn't really have that chip. It was kind of missing in my wiring. So I took advantage of that too. So all those things coupled together, I was like, this is something that I enjoy doing. And I recognize that it doesn't come as naturally to everyone. And it's something I want to continue pursuing, whether it's just for fun or maybe even a career one day. So that's kind of how I got into the acting side of things, or I knew I wanted to. And then I just started auditioning. There's a great theater in Cleveland called the Cleveland Playhouse. And I auditioned for a play, and I was a child actor. It was a kid part. And I was the only actor not from LA or New York. They brought in professional actors from all over the country, and I got picked as the understudy. I was in the 4th grade for the role that I wanted to get. So an understudy is basically like if the main kid got sick, I would step up and be on call and ready to perform that night. And after months of auditions and that process, I ended up getting opening night and closing night, and went from understudy to, out of, let's say, 60 performances, doing about 40 of them. So it was amazing. And that kind of feedback was that, I'm not bad at this either. I'm good at this. I could do this. And that belief and that confidence helped fuel me as I continued going from there on auditions and finding different opportunities when they came my way.
And Jason, I want to go back to something you just said about, caring what people think. Is it more caring what people think, or is it more defending your reputation?
I'm a people pleaser, so I want people to like me. I don't want to piss people off, and even people that I have differences from, like, the name of your podcast, Everything But Politics. Politics, as I mentioned, are very divisive right now in our country, in the world, really. I've always been drawn more to finding common ground with people. And I want to be well liked just in that regard. I don't want to piss people off, even if we disagree, even if there's someone who's on the different side of the aisle politically from me. I want to try to find the common interest, the common bonds that like unite us all as humans, because I think that's one of my abilities. A lot of people have this, but that I'm able to find common ground with whoever it is that I'm connecting with. And I've used that a lot in my career as a host, a moderator, a reporter, an interviewer, that I feel confident no matter who it is that I'm sitting across from interviewing, that I'll be able to hopefully set them at ease, connect with them, and have a good positive conversation, even if I disagree with a lot of their beliefs.
You know,
So
I
more about
totally
that.
agree. Totally
Yeah.
agree. And Jason, what I find admirable about you and your career is that you found your inspiration and passion at such a young age. Most people don't really have that luxury or I don't want to say the ability, but most people just don't find it until some people never find it.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk us through what it means to you to, find your passion at a young age, and now here you are 30 years later doing what you wanted to do when you were 8, 9, 10 years old?
Yeah, I've always felt really, really lucky for that fact that I knew the direction I wanted to head in, whether it was acting or hosting or reporting or play-by-play or journalism. That I didn't know exactly what, or even comedy, but I knew it was performance-based. I knew the direction that I wanted to head down, and I've always felt very lucky about that because you're right. A lot of people don't know what they want to do. Some people go to college and they don't know what they're going to major in or what direction. People graduate from high school or college, and it's kind of like, then what? What are they going to do? And I feel very fortunate that I had a sense of a path. But I do remember the day I graduated college, my dad said to me, "Congrats. Now what? What do you want to do next?" And I said, what I want to do hasn't been invented yet. I'm going to invent my own dream job is basically what I said. And he was like, "Oh yeah, great. Thanks a lot." But that's kind of what I've been able to do because, I went to Syracuse University. I was a broadcast journalism major. They teach you how to do the local news. And that's depressing. I knew that's not what I wanted to do. It's important. And I still watch the news and the local news, but it's like house fires and murders and car crashes. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. And there wasn't really a major or a path for kind of the career that I've built, which isn't really in a specific lane. I'm not a play-by-play reporter. I'm not on ESPN. I'm not, I've done lots of different things, tastes of that, sideline reporting. But what I do is hard to explain and describe as we started this conversation today. I had belief in myself and my abilities to connect, and I knew that I would find a path. And it's kind of more about the journey than the destination. So, again, back to your question, I was grateful that I knew the direction, but I didn't, and I still don't have a clear finish line. Still don't have a clear goal. Like I need this one job or this one thing I want to accomplish. It's the journey that's getting me there, that I'm having a lot of fun, and it continues to evolve and shape who I am, what I'm good at, what I can do, and where I'm going next.
And Jason, for our listeners who don't know much about you, can you kind of give them an example of what you do right now?
Yeah, I do a lot of different things. I'm one of the go-to hosts for the NBA. I love basketball. It's my favorite sport. So later tonight, for example, I'm hosting a live post-game show on the NBA's formerly Twitter, now X Spaces, with some NBA analysts and commentators breaking down tonight's games. I host shows kind of on a weekly basis for the NBA on various social media platforms. I'm their go-to live event host and MC at big events, from the NBA draft and All-Star weekend to the first ever NBA in-season tournament, semifinals and finals in Vegas in a few weeks that I'll be at. I'm the host and MC for LIV Golf. I travel the world. I do their trophy ceremony and the shotgun start and all their big live events. Their slogan is "Golf But Louder," and I'm sort of the but louder part of it. And then I work with a lot of different brands. As you see now, brands more and more are creating their own content, or they're putting on their own events, and they work with incredible athletes and influencers, creators, celebrities. And I'm often the person who can help bridge the gap when they're bringing in an A-list celebrity or athlete. I can be the one to set them up for success, to do the heavy lifting so that they can be on message and on brand, but also I can tee them up with the right questions, the right topics of conversation. I can bring the energy to an event. I can create content on social media. So there's a lot that I do, but the best way to see it all is probably on my Instagram. It's a good collection of a lot of these adventures, Jay-Z Fish, and you can find out what I'm up to on any given day, because every day is different, and I love that variety of it all too.
Right. And on top of every day being different, the world and climate of media is very different than it was when you first started off. Obviously, now in the world of podcasting, and there's so many out there. There's so many different niches. How has it changed? Obviously, when you started, it was radio was king, right? And now it feels radio is kind of, well, not kind of. It definitely is on the decline. What do you think that means for other media platforms going forward in time?
Well, I mean, I think it's great, and it's been trending this way for a long time, that it's so much easier to just create content yourself. You guys have started a podcast. There's no barriers to entry. You didn't need to like sell this into a radio network to try to get placement and advertising sales and all that. Anyone out there with a camera or a microphone can create their own content and start something. You don't know, nothing bad ever comes from creating content. I've always said this both to myself and as I've given advice to others who are starting their career. The worst thing that happens from starting a podcast or a YouTube channel is that you get better at what you're doing. That's the worst that can happen, because you get the reps and the experience. And the best case scenario is maybe you find a following or a calling, and you start to build an audience and a brand yourself, and it has real, maybe monetary and financial value. But that's not necessarily why you need to get into it or why you should get into it. If you do it because you love doing it, because it brings you closer to people like I do, and make great connections, and you can hone your skills in your craft and get closer and closer towards a clear vision of what it is that you want to do. Everyone out there should create content, cut their own content or their own podcasts or their own YouTube channel or their own social media content. It's like, why not? You'll hopefully have a good time. You'll learn something from it, and you never know what can happen. And I think that's just the trend that it's been going in for a long time, since YouTube started. Now this podcast wave, that you don't need to wait to be given permission to go do something. You can do it yourself. And as much as you put into it, time, energy, effort, resources, that's usually what you'll get out of it.
And you made the comment that by doing things like this, you do get to meet some pretty awesome people. Obviously, you know what that's like. You were just at the Prize Picks event recently in Atlanta. I saw that all over social media. But with that, I mean, with the people that you're networking with, I saw on YouTube an interview you did. You used to keep a spreadsheet where you'd keep every person that you would meet, you'd document that. And then if they connected you to another person, you document that. First off, I really respect your organization with that. But how did you even manage that?
Yeah, you're good. I'm impressed that you did your homework there and your research. You found that. You're uncovering me as a huge dork that I am. But yeah, I felt that it is very important to be organized. When I first moved out to Los Angeles a long time ago now, I knew maybe 8 people, and I put those 8 names on a spreadsheet. And I made a column next to it, like who introduced me to that person, or how do I know that person? Then what date did I reach out to them and email them, or what date did I connect with them on? And when I did meet with that person, I told them my story. And all I did when I met those first 8 people and I moved to LA was I told them about myself, what I've done, what I want to do. And I said, is there one person that after learning more about me, that you think I should meet and connect with? And that was my only ask. And I would always get a name, and they'd say, yeah, let me email you. I'll connect you with this person. I think it'd be great. So that 8 names turned into 16, turned into 32, and so on and so forth. It continued, and it grew to 700 or 800 people. And for the first few months that I lived in LA, that's all that I did. I was staying with my aunt and uncle, so I didn't have to pay rent for a couple months. That helped me get by. And it just helped me stay organized about who I was connecting with and how to follow up and follow through. And when not to be too pushy, because there's a fine line between persistence and pushiness. So, oh, it's been 2 weeks since I followed up. It's been a month since I last talked to that person. I can see that. And I think it'd be appropriate to send a follow-up, update them. Hey, what I'm up to. I just did X, Y, and Z. Thought you'd like to know. By the way, I'd still love to connect with this person that you mentioned if you're still open to doing that. And I just managed that because so many people back in the day used to pass out business cards. Now, not quite as much, but people always pass out business cards. And everyone was really good at that. But I noticed that people were really bad, like when I would pass out a business card, of following up. Like I'd pass it out and that was it. That's kind of the end of it. But I became obsessive of if I met someone, that's just step one. Step two is following up and doing it within the first 24 hours. So it's fresh in their mind and they remember it, and then keeping it organized because maybe I never hear back, or maybe I hear back, but it doesn't go anywhere, and following up and knowing when it's appropriate to do all that. So really through managing that whole system is how I first started to find work and opportunities living in Los Angeles, because so many people move out to LA with hopes and dreams and aspirations, and you can take courses on acting and hosting and producing and directing and improv and stand-up and all these different mediums of performance and the arts, but no one really teaches you this step of how to network and follow up and follow through, and organization was a key for it. And I do think it was one of the keys to kind of jump starting my career, just getting more people to know who I am and my eagerness. And I think if there was 100 people, if I was maybe a little too persistent with one or two of them, I think it probably impressed, 8 or 9 of every 10 people that I connected with. And it led to a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, well, and Jason, obviously networking is really important to you and should be important to everyone. What advice would you give to like Merrick and I on networking through social media if we're not in person with people?
Well, I think this is a perfect example. What you're doing right now, we're connected, we're on your podcast, and this is a great way to do that. So I think that's step one, reaching out to people, and having a podcast is a great excuse to reach out to people that you might not necessarily connect with, so that they can hopefully support what you're doing, give advice, and you can stay in touch. I think just as important as the reaching out to people is the following up, the following through, the sending thank yous, the keeping some sort of track of, oh, it's been 6 months since I last talked to that person. I think it'd be appropriate to just connect and let them know what I'm up to now, or where I'm at, or what's going, because you never know where someone will be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now. And it's all about cultivating relationships, not doing it because it's transactional and because you want something from them, but just because hopefully you enjoy meeting and connecting with people. And if you do, you never know what may come from that relationship one day. Like you guys, we're just meeting now for the first time. And hopefully I'm able to offer you and your audience some advice. But someone watching this podcast, listening to it, or one of you might be in a position 10 years from now to hire me for a job one day. And you keep that in mind. It's like, you never know how life unfolds. So I have this sign over my shoulder, and it's really kind of boils down to everything in my life and my career is work hard and be nice to people. Be nice to everybody and work hard. And if you do those two things, you'll be successful.
No, that's a great sign right behind you. I like that. I like that quote a lot. Work hard and be nice to people. Jason, why don't you tell us and our listeners about your company, In the Zone Productions? What exactly is it that you guys do?
In the Zone Productions is basically me and everything that I do, essentially. But, I do many different things. A lot of what I share on social media, or what you see, is the live event MC or television hosting shows or content for brands. But I'm often hired behind the scenes to help a brand come up with a campaign or a contest or a concept that they want to execute, with research, with development, with pitching and producing shows. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that happens that helps set me up for success later. But it's just the tip of the iceberg is the stuff when I have a microphone in my hands and I'm getting people fired up. There's a lot more behind the scenes that I do within In the Zone Productions, the people that I work with, collaborate on. that helps make productions happen. And my podcast is a good example of that as well, In the Zone with Jason Zone Fisher, where we find all of our own sponsors and guests and brands, and we do crazy research on the guests. And there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into that, that you hopefully, see or listen to the final product, but it takes a lot of time and effort behind the scenes to get it ready to go.
Yeah, we definitely does. But I feel like what I'm about to ask you kind of goes back into your networking. But what have you learned about marketing over the last few years? Obviously, in your case, you're marketing yourself, but with that being said, is it more just, the more people that know about you, the more likely you are to succeed, and that goes back to the networking?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, marketing is obviously so important for any brand, whether it's a person or a company. For myself, I just live by the credo that work begets work. So the more that I do, the more people see what I'm doing. They see that hopefully that I'm in demand because I'm good at my job. And that leads them to hopefully, remember me when they're in a position to be like, oh, we're putting together this event. Who should we use? Or, we need someone for this opportunity. They see that I'm constantly out there, that I'm constantly working, that I'm, if they don't know me, they see that. If they know me, hopefully they know that I'm a good person and fun to be around. And it leads to more and more opportunities. So marketing for me is just kind of like taking word of mouth and putting it online on social media and places like that where people can see the quality and the volume that I'm constantly doing, and hopefully it leads to more opportunities from that.
And when you are hired as a host, what can they expect to get from you as the host?
I mean, a hard worker, someone who's well prepared for any situation, both when I'm on my feet off the cuff, but also do a lot of prep and research so that I know what to ask and what's going to take place, and be prepared for anything that's thrown my way. A lot of energy, some comedy, and just professionalism. Someone who will be there early and will be the last to leave, and has seen it and done it for a long time, and is someone that like you don't have to worry about. It can be reliable. You can worry about everything else with your event or shoot or whatever it is that like, I got it. You don't have to worry about me.
And how does like your preparation go when you're interviewing someone? You said it's a long process. What do you kind of look for?
Well, I guess it depends. I mean, if it's for my podcast, for example, there's a lot of things I like to do with a guest where we surprise them with lots of different things. So I do crazy research and try to find stories that maybe they've hinted at or they've never really told before, that I can uncover something new, little tidbits that I can surprise the guest with, that like, how did you know that? I like catching people off guard with that. And like fun little games that we play. We have one segment sponsored by Goldbelly. It's a great company that'll ship food anywhere across the country, where I do crazy research and find out what a guest's like favorite food from their childhood is, or from where they went to college, or something that's sentimental to them. And without them knowing, I find out what that is, and I have it shipped overnighted via Goldbelly so that I can surprise them with it. And it catches a guest off guard. Not only that, like, how did you know this, but how did you get this? How did you do this? This is crazy. And it's a great way to integrate a brand, because we're not even really talking about Goldbelly, but it's clear that it's all this moment is made possible because their incredible service exists that could deliver this moment to you. And it's a great conversation starter then for why is this meaningful to the guest, and where are they from, and take us back to the beginning. So for something like that, the podcast, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, listening to other podcasts they've been on, reading articles and interviews about them and that they've done in the past, just doing as much homework as I can about the person. And then, sometimes if it's a live event, based on what the event is, if I'm asking questions, moderating, I'm just, curious what I would want to know. And then if I'm friends with maybe someone who's a super fan of that person, I call other people too and say, if you could ask Phil Mickelson one question, or if you could ask Trey Young, one question, what would it be? And I kind of poll other people that I know and respect to get other advice on, like, what are they curious about? Things like that. There's no science to it, but I always just I come prepared to any situation that I'm in, and that's really important.
Yeah. And how do you think the production is different between in-person podcasts and online podcasts?
How's the production different?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, online is a little more challenging because you have to work a little bit harder to make that connection come across and come through on camera. When you're in person, there's, time before you even start rolling, and you're with the person and you can connect. You can read their body language. You can just feel their energy and their presence in the room. If they're tired, if they're hungry, if they're energetic, excited, and you can kind of feed off that or help bring your energy to the table that they can feed off that. It's a little more challenging doing it in a format like this online, but it does open many more doors. It makes it much more convenient to get guests, to get people to come on board. So there's, pluses and minuses with both of it.
Totally. And Jason, I kind of want to shift gears here for a second. I want to talk about LIV. I just also want to say that Evan and I, we're proponents of LIV. We love golf and we think competition's a good thing. But with that being said, obviously a lot of criticism and scrutiny around the LIV Golf League. When you did take the position, how did you deal with that criticism from, friends, peers, really anyone that was outspoken against that move?
Well, yeah, I did last year, season 1 of LIV Golf. I did all the US events, and I kind of fell into it where I got an email the day before their first US event. It was in Portland, that someone I'd worked with in the past. They were looking for a host of the welcome party that they were having. And they were like, are you available tomorrow to fly to Portland and host this thing? And I got on the phone. I was like, well, what is it? They said LIV Golf. And all I knew was kind of the rumors I'd heard on television. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, oh, I don't know. Isn't that controversial? I don't know if I should do this. Hey, listen, just come. It's not a televised event. This is just in person. Why don't you come see for yourself? So I went and I did it. And when I went for myself, it was amazing. All the golfers were great, like good people, really cool, down to earth, have had so much success, but were just like laid back and great. All the staff and everyone that works there is amazing. People who came from Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA or huge brands or agencies. And they were all like really cool and excellent at what they do, but hardworking and great. And I kind of saw for myself who was behind the scenes and who was up in the forefront, the players, and everyone was amazing. So I kind of was like, yeah, I did a good job. And they're like, could you come back and host the trophy ceremony? Could you come back and do the next one? And it kind of was a slow trickle into this. And as I had these decisions, should I do this or not, I reached out to a lot of people that I know and respect, from friends and family members to people that I work with at the NBA and various other leagues and brands. And literally everybody said, you should do this, that like this is a unique opportunity. It sounds like it's a lot of fun, and see where it goes. And that they don't think it would harm me in any way in terms of my career, that I'm working with LIV Golf. And it really hasn't. And it's become more and more mainstream, and I think more and more accepted. And I think what I always say to people is, if you want to know what LIV Golf is all about, get to an event. If you go in person, you'll feel it. You'll feel the vibe and the energy, and it's a lot of fun, and it's great access. And I think when you go and feel and experience it for yourself, you kind of get it. And golf, I've always been a casual golf fan, but golf needed, I think what LIV is bringing is more energy and excitement. If we were all going to go out golfing, I wouldn't care if you have the top button of your collared shirt buttoned. It's like, relax a little bit, play some music, like, let's have fun. That is the vibe and the energy that golf needs, because that is honestly where golf was going outside of the pros, just from golf fans and becoming younger. And I think there's definitely room for what the PGA offers is tradition and history and heritage and excellence. And that is what golf is about too. Absolutely. There's definitely, like, that should be there. But I think what LIV is doing is a whole different thing. And I think there's room for that too. So I've been really happy with my decision just because of the people behind the scenes. It really feels like a family, the LIV Golf family who put on these events. And it's a lot of fun. And everyone did take a chance, and we'll see where it goes. You know, you never know, but it's been a fun adventure. And, one day at a time, it continues to grow. And people who go see and experience for themselves, everyone's that I've talked to has loved it.
I absolutely respect your decision, and I'm happy that you've enjoyed the ride thus far. We actually went to the event last, I think it was August or September, in Chicago at Rich Harvest Farms.
Yeah.
And there's music going, everyone's friendly, they got beverage carts. It's really different. So we did enjoy it. And then a few months back, we had Kenny Harms on our show, Kevin Nas caddy, and he was telling us all about how, as a caddy, and the internal experience is much, much better than the PGA Tour was.
Totally, yeah. They treat the players very well, but they treat the caddies very well, the staff, everyone. It's like everyone is taken care of and thought of. And it's not just from, obviously, the headlines are, these huge paychecks that the golfers receive or the prize pools that they can win. But it's about more. Of course, that's very nice, but it's about more than just that. It's just about being thought of. And like the caddies are always recognized, acknowledged. They've got little gifts welcoming and waiting for them when they check into their hotel in each city that they go to. It's like the attention to detail is really there to make everyone feel valued. And that's really important. I think everyone brings a different energy and appreciation and is better at their job because of that.
And since becoming the voice of LIV Golf, how has your life changed?
I've got way more frequent flyer miles. So, that like Delta status, I'm killing it. Diamond status. That's how it's changed. I mean, it hasn't changed much other than, I know a lot more about golf. I'm more invested in the golf world. I've become friends with some of the best golfers in the world, and that's a pretty unique, incredible experience. And I've gotten to travel the world. In my career, I've had a lot of success, and I've traveled the country so many times and gone to every city in America for the most part. I've been all over the place, but I never really traveled internationally for work before. I had for fun, but not for work. And just this past year alone, in the last few months, I was in Singapore and Australia and London and Spain and Saudi Arabia and all over the place, places that I would never go, and especially get to go for work. So that's been a really unique, really cool experience, opening my horizons of what's possible and how we're bringing golf to the world.
Yeah. And Jason, looking ahead, what are some of your personal and professional goals as we look ahead to 2024 and beyond?
I think just to keep doing what I'm doing, but at a bigger and bigger scale, a bigger level. I'm very fortunate and very lucky. I don't take anything for granted that I get to do in my career. I love it. And I love working with the NBA, with LIV Golf, with some of the best professional athletes in the world, with huge brands and great creators and actors, comedians. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, but I just want to keep growing, and doing it on a bigger and bigger scale each and every year. So hopefully I can continue to build upon that success that I've had, and that this is still, on the upward trajectory.
Yeah. Jason, I'm very happy for your success. I've continued success. And like I said, thank you so much for, joining us on our show. We know you're extremely busy. But before we let you go, where can our listeners find you and what you got coming up?
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. It's awesome what you guys are building and doing this yourself. Great way for brothers to connect to and meet new people. This is awesome. The best place to follow me is probably on Instagram, JZFish, Jason Zone Fisher. It's my real middle name. So JZFISH. You can check out all my crazy adventures, things that I'm doing there. And on my website, jasonzonefisher.com. It's a great collection of all the various things that I've done in my crazy career, and that stays up to date and current. And you can see the podcast and all sorts of fun stuff there as well. So those are probably the two best places to keep up with what I got going on. That's where I send my mom when she's like, "What are you doing again?" Just check it out. Yeah,
the website looks great. I was checking it out earlier. If you don't know if it's you or a design team, but they're killing it.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, that is more a design team than me, but they've taught me how now I can manage it. So hopefully I don't set it on fire.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening, and work hard and be nice to people. Jason Zone Fisher, thank you very much.
You got it. Thanks, guys.